Hello.
Boom! Welcome. We are calling this segment Free Music Empire Attention Undivided. I am Danny Orange, aka Summer Close Till This Is Over, right? It's snowing out here. I'm sleeveless. I'm not leaving this house. I don't care. So I am here. I am safe, and I am very happy to have one of the most important voices of 2020 in
Hey,
rap
shit,
music.
thank you.
Somebody I never stopped mentioning when we talked about people on runs, and everyone I talked to was like, "That's right, good call." Like it was it has to be acknowledged. So we're talking to Iceberg Theory here. The theory is realized. Welcome to the conversation.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. It's intense. No, we're quarantining in hopes to have family member interaction later on. So we are fully locked down, and it's intense. It's intense.
I feel you. I don't think I'm going home for Christmas, so I'm planning on the solo Christmas myself.
Yep, that's how a lot of people are doing it. We're trying to make it work, but it's
Yeah, no, that's
it's
cool.
tricky.
That's cool that you're all on the same page. It's tough when you got a lot of people and a lot of different family, and they all could be on different pages.
Well, yeah, we have family Zooms where we work it out and like talk logistics. Very reasonable folks, so it's good to be able to do that. But yeah, so let's talk about the run I have. So this isn't really a full-on interview kind of thingy where I'm like, "What's your conception of God?" and you tell me about it. This is like I listened to as much of what you did this year as I could over the weekend and pulled interesting lines from every project.
Okay.
And I started theorizing. I've come up with a pretty interesting analogy for what you've done and what you've created. Uh, Maybe a few. So we'll go through it and talk about it. So, but I know you had told me before that you kind of designed the run you're on. Talk about the run you're on. List the projects you've given us this year. Let's start there.
Oh shit! I got to pull up bang. You mean with specifically with Fanon or just like everything?
I've got some of the last a symbolist with
Am I still you still see me?
no, your visual went away, but I can hear you.
Okay. No, I'm just looking at the thing. So I guess technically, see the way I view it. I mean, there's other projects with other people that I went on, but then as far as just looking at the Bandcamp now, to me the run starts with Righteous from last year. So technically that's not this year, but that's the first full collaborative project me and Fanon put out. So to me that's where it starts. And then Sister of Cold Nights, Rinpoche, Sophia Perennis, Serapium, Alexandria, and the Kabbalah, and then Dispatches. But then, along the way, there have been the stuff with Achille, stuff, Sloth Monk stuff, other beat tapes, Last Symbolist with Blood Lifting. So there's been some other stuff, but, that's definitely the ones with Fanon are kind of how I categorize this particular run, and the other ones are things that are complementary in a sense.
We're back. Yeah, no, it's so there's just a lot of stuff this year. The ones that I listened to and pulled up, obviously the new one, Dispatches from the Kali Yuga, Alexandria, Rinpoche, Precepts of Chiron, Last Symbolist, and the Kabbalah. I kind of grabbed a bunch of those and just started listening to what I could hear, and it was very interesting. Fanon's been on a heck of a run. I kind of wanted to talk to you about Fanon for a little bit.
Okay.
Because I was thinking about the shoveling. I was shoveling and thinking about August 1. And Fanon is usually like well, not usually. Sometimes there are big producers that have a superpower, right? Scott Storch comes to mind. Scott Storch was a pianist for the Roots, right? And so his piano was really where it started for him, right? He could kill an interesting piano segment in 5 minutes, blow it up with drums, and you've got a hit, right? But Fanon, I don't know that Fanon has that like strength. It's just that he seems to be the smartest player on the court and just know who gets what. Like the beats you got are totally different from the beats that Sleep gets for routes, right? Sleep's right. They're totally different from what Vic Spencer on Psychological Cheat Sheet. They're totally different, and he can hear who gets them, right? That must be the case.
Well, I don't want to. I don't know how much he wants me to go into his process or not. I could speak of just my experience, and I don't know if it's the same across with every single person. But mainly from my experience, unless there's an entirely different stash of beats that he's doing, and I think I pretty much hear every beat he does. That he's sending out to everybody, and then it comes to he lets people pick individually. And sometimes he says, because he's got a lot of beat tapes, some older stuff, so once in a while he'll be like, yeah, you know what, with this project you should check out this beat tape and pick some stuff on that. But rarely, the one exception to that would be the first one we were working on years ago, which isn't out yet, which I hope to be maybe this year sometime. But that one was called Birds of Appetite, and with that one he crafted that album front to back, and then we continued working on it and adding to it. But that one, that was fully, he's like, and that was kind of when we were early working together too. So that was more, just saying, boom, like here's what I my inception of the album, or conception, nothing.
So you get on the list, and then that's you're in good shape once you're on the list.
Oh, if you're on the list, yeah, you're gold. I mean, that's fucking golden. I mean, and then when I see who's on the list, because that was years ago, and I'm just like, holy shit, like my favorite, rappers are on this list, which is crazy, and I'm just, I'm nobody basically. So, and then so it's like that was cool.
Yeah, show and improve it. I mean, I heard Woods talk about it once. He said like, Fanon will send you a beat, you'll be blown away, but then you got to wait because there's another beat pack coming, and it could be even better.
Oh yeah, no, it just keeps coming, and especially during the lockdown and all that. I mean, especially towards the first end of it. I mean, he was just cooking, and when we just kept working, and I kind of worked the same way. I mean, I recently moved into this this place like about a year ago, kind of when we started releasing Righteous. So now I have pretty solid solitude. And I didn't really have internet. I just had my dad on my phone, so I'm not watching Netflix. I'm not whatever. Like he's sending stuff every day, sometimes multiple packs in a day. Like he'll just send one pack in the morning, one pack in the afternoon or night, and besides work, what am I doing? I'm not reading. I'm reading. I'm working on this. So that's what we were doing. So it was just. Just two people, just continually working on their craft and really consistently.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Let me get into some stuff here. So yeah, you had said you wanted to really kind of put out a lot of work, get people familiar with you this year, and Dispatches, from what you've been saying, has done really well.
Yeah, it's definitely, I think the work we've put in prior has definitely given people, somewhat of an idea of who we are. And, like you said, when you're talking to a lot of people, they would bring up my name and stuff like that. And, I still obviously want to keep growing it, but that's when the year started, that was not the case. So I think as far as just cementing myself in, some people's minds as, someone who's doing their thing, whether it's, however they want to interpret it, but they definitely at least will, more people recognize me, suffice it to say. And now I'm in a position where I don't think I need to release 10 projects in a year. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. I think, moving forward, a lot of the projects I'm going to do are on the production side of things. And there are a lot of people that have albums worth of my beats that hopefully will be materializing next year. So, you'll definitely see some of that. But to me, I'm always making beats. So that's not as big of a deal for me to give someone, a pack of beats. It's cool, but as far as rapping, like, yeah, I don't foresee dropping quite as much, but on the same token, I think those releases then will hold a little more weight. And that's where I want to take it to now, where I don't want to completely stop releasing a lot of music, but at the same time, I want each release to be a little bit more, because we were just working, and then just, when it's done, as soon as we kind of feel like it's done, drop it. Oftentimes it's like the night that, he's sending back the mixes, and the waves, and I upload them to Bandcamp, and okay, done. That's the album. Now we're working on the next one. So there wasn't too much we didn't really mess with the rollout. We didn't mess with, too much promotion. We didn't really do any of that, but just drop. So. Right.
No, and I think I was talking to Nate LeBlanc from the Dad Bod Rap Pod about the year in music. And he said, he was talking about people who've been prolific this year. And he said kind of what you're hinting at, that like everybody should kind of have 1 year where they do that, right? Where that you have that Rock Marcy year where you put out, a bunch of great stuff and you put yourself on the map for everybody. And then you're a name, and then you get to go back to curating kind of one a year, and you get to be like, your spot is saved, right? In people's playlists,
Yeah, you'd hope so. I don't know. I'm still working on navigating the landscape myself, so I don't know if I go radio silent for a year or two. I don't know how many people are checking, but I do think that now there are at least some people that I feel confident that if a Bandcamp notification came up a year or two from now that I dropped something, they'll be like, oh shit, okay, let me check that, and it would mean something to at least those few people. So that's cool, and I think that's a good place to be. So I'm happy we did it this way. And I think in the time that that we've worked, I just feel like I've continued to get better, and further refine, just reading more, writing more, just keep getting a little bit sharper. So now I'm in a place where I feel a lot more confident than when I started. So I think just that amount of work to put out, it definitely sharpens you.
That's awesome. Yeah, I wish I had been following from the start. Going back, I really kind of came in late.
I wouldn't say that, man. You've been. You've been definitely before a hell of a lot of people. So
because I think my first reaction was, I don't know about this guy's voice or whatever. It was just there's like too much here, but like the Kabbalah was really like a moving point, right? The Sunday service.
That one did it. Yeah, that one definitely got a lot of people, I think.
That first song was a perfect first song for what that album was, for the production, for what you do. And once I dug in on that, we're really from the same school. Like, we're ka people. If you're a ka person, it's like a different lifestyle. Like you kind of like
introverted, you're in your head, that's not like outgoing people, music. That's not I'm gonna
we like unwrapping it. We like, I remember listening to Days of Yen Lo for the first time and just sitting in confusion on my back porch and just being like, fuck, I don't know what this means at all. I'm gonna find out. Like, it was just to be so dumb after knowing a fair amount about hip hop was a gift he gave to me, right? It was like, now I've got to learn this, right?
His writing always is very layered, which I appreciate. There's always multiple meanings to each thing he's saying. So that to me, that definitely is something that tried to, definitely formed what I try to do for the most part.
And you have, it's similar in the sense that where Ka will find connect to a lane, right? Whether it's chess, you know, samurai culture, and like pull himself through that prism so that the two are meeting, right? And it becomes like there becomes a conflict within the record, right? Descendants of Cain works because of this, right? Like it's, you can feel that he's inhabiting Cain from his experience in ways and being and letting the anger bubble, and it's really interesting. And you have that sense. I was at work when I'll send things to get reviewed by higher ups, and like I'll send a goofy picture in the body of the email, and I sent the cover photo for Alexandria, and people started hitting me up like, "Wow, what is that?" You know, like it's just a striking cover, right? Like it's just striking. And so the themes are striking, the titles are striking, the artwork, and it is in that mold of like, you've got to unpack this, right? So that's cool. I was gonna start talking about, there was something I just listened to before you came on, Red Sulfur on Dispatches.
Oh yeah.
So you say something on that I think is a real, like, one of the commandments of listening to Iceberg Theory, which is seen the sickness in society and chose to walk away. That seems very central to what you are putting out in your music.
Yeah, I definitely say that, kind of definitely something in that vein. You know, multiple times. I can't help it. Yeah, it's definitely the ethos that I am working in, I guess. It's sort of the monastic sort of mindset has always been, like I almost feel that that's the subculture I'm working in to a degree, where, you know, if I wasn't doing this, I might have been in a monastery, and that's sort of the thing where you, you know, the whole thing of being a monk is or being a hermit, or, you know, anything like that. You know, you're seeing certain things in society, and you're generally separating yourself in a certain way by being cloistered. And in that cloister, you might not really, it's obviously different order to order, but you might not talk to your family, you might not get the news, you might not, any number of, you know, austerities like that. And, you know, that's for the purpose of looking inward, for bringing you closer to God, for all that. But if you're, you know, generally immersed in, you know, just what people are doing, and, you know, just I mean, at this point, I don't need to describe what the sicknesses of society are. I think at this point, if you can't see that, then you know, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's
thematically, it seems like groupthink is the enemy of Iceberg Theory. But like, there's groupthink in society that leads people to toxic places and toxic decision making. That it seems like you believe, if you had come to your own conclusions, like just studied in the dark with this, you'd be in a better place. And I think there's some of that in the music. Am I imagining that, or is that fair?
I mean, I don't know if I'd put it exactly that way. I don't know how I would change it, but no, I mean, I think overall that sounds, you know, I don't have any major gripe with it necessarily.
So, and the other thing we should do, because everybody loves your name, it's a great name. We should talk about Hemingway a little bit, if you want to talk about the Iceberg Theory and Hemingway's effect on your writing in any way, or?
Yeah, I mean, I got the name from him. I wouldn't say I'm like the biggest Hemingway acolyte in the world. I mean, I've read a fair bit of his stuff, but I just like that general approach, which I wouldn't say, I mean, the whole thing is that you write, you know, in a very journalistic sort of way, which I don't think I necessarily do, but it's the idea that you're seeing a story, and he just gives you, you know, the events of the story. Like, I remember reading The Sun Also Rises, and they're at the bullfight or something, or maybe at a restaurant or something, and they're just sitting around the table, and the dialogue is just so plain. You know, there's really not much description. There's not much really and he's not telling you how the characters feel. He's not telling you anything. You're really sitting around as if it's just as if you're like a spectator, kind of just watching this. And but that the what's underneath the surface is still there, and he's able to do that really well. So that's sort of the inception of that's basically how the name came to be. I was in college, I think, one night, and I was in our old apartment, and I think I might have been, on under the influence of something or other, and it came to me in a flash. Like I was just like, okay, that's the name. And then the project I did with DJ AI, Techno Magical Realism, that was the first. Actually, no, that was the second. The first was Anchor Watt with my friend Derek, and he was a good friend of mine in college and still now, even though I don't see him that much. But we put out the EP, and I was going by Iceberg Theory then, and that was in, I want to say, 2013. So that was kind of the big name change sort of thing that for me. So since very 2013. Cool.
Yeah, no, there's definitely always more under the surface. But with Hemingway, it was about picking the right details to showcase. And I think you do that in very interesting ways. Give you another, the one really, really interesting line, just Messiah, where have you been on the Kabbalah? Sees the ends through the means, hem through the seams. Appearances, it seems, animal awareness is keen. The weight of the unconscious, I can bury your dreams.
I could bear it in dreams.
Oh, the weight of the unconscious, I could bury in dreams.
I could bear it, like I could stand it. Like that's the only place that I could stand. Yep. Yeah. Because that's the only place you can stand it. Otherwise, it'll crush you if it comes up too much.
But the specific, like the phrasing, there's like specific phrasing that is yours and no one else's, like ends through the means, hems through the seams. Like I've never heard that before, right? That's a perspective that you had with the imagery. It's really interesting.
Thank you. Yeah, I like that. I like that line. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a major explanation. I mean, I think to me that's the thing. It's kind of, in a way, it's kind of I mean, it's not a complicated law. I mean, like there's ideas in it, but it's not, to me, because a lot of times people say like, oh, like you write in code or you're cryptic or you're this, that, and the other thing, and maybe with certain references, but I wouldn't say overall I'm trying to be necessarily cryptic or say, some maybe with certain lines, like something like I always enjoyed Ghostface, but even then he's saying something and he's saying something clear. But even like Aesop Rock, like there's a lot of abstract people, and I certainly have a tinge of abstract, but I wouldn't say that's an abstract line. Sees the end through the means. That's not abstract. That's very focused. That's like a Ka line. I mean that's the same sort of idea. That he's not. There's not even a reference. It's just what it is. So to me, I just want to, not to say you're saying that I am or something, but I think a lot of people kind of say that because they just listen to it and they're like, oh, I don't want to spend the time with it, or whatever the case may be, or I just like the sound of all the references, or which is cool. Like I mean, a lot of times I'm just pulling references out of my ass, like to try to have some cool shit. So that definitely is there to some degree, but not everything is meant to be a code to decipher this, that, and the other thing. It's just, and I think you know what I'm talking about. When people know what I'm talking about, and they're familiar with some of the references, they get. I think they get what I'm saying overall.
There's a little bit of like the misnomer of like Shakespeare, when like where teachers had to explain like Shakespeare's joking sometimes. Like this is not serious all the time, right? And like so there are definitely times where I was like, okay, there's references here. But they're still used for braggadocio's sake, or to flex, or like for the normal like things you would hear in rap song. They're just pulled through a different universe. And There was one, I didn't quote anything from it, but I'm really impressed when you have like multiple people on, you're still able to get a lot done with your verse.
Mm.
The shattering of Dragnapur, which
Oh yeah,
I think it's
yeah.
the most fun song on Dispatches.
It's like it's the only fun song. That's a miserable album, and that's the one hint of fun. I mean, because you have Fat Boy, Sharif, and you have Tokyo, and you know they're fun. I mean, you know,
And it goes to my point, by the way, that this isn't even the first song you've done with Sharif. Like you've done multiple songs with Sharif at this point, and
yeah,
I had this theory that like hip hop is maybe the only well functioning mechanism of free speech in American life at this point.
mm.
Um, so I would use as an exhibit like your relationship with Fat Boy Sharif, that how different that content is, but the instant respect that you have for each other, knowing that each other is so good, that's like what's cool about hip hop is that everybody doesn't have to like have the same bumper stickers on their car, right? Like everybody gets why the other perspective is great and it works together.
And I think just being people who are uniquely themselves, and I think with Sharif that's more than apparent. With Tokyo, that's apparent. I mean, no one else is spelling out Demetrius on an album and doing like a whole other voice with Demetrius, the DEMEC, like no one's no, I don't know who's doing that. When I heard that, I'm like, where did you come up with that? And he's like, oh, it came to mind, and it's like no one else is. So yeah, but that's the thing. Being unique, just being unique. Yep. Coming with a flavor and a style that is singular, and to me that's the more I have gotten just kept working on stuff, I guess the more I just keep wanting to refine that singularity in a sense, and just
you become very good at like hearing that in other people, right? And like finding people who have that, and that it sounds so great together. Like, is there two people from Tomorrow's Kings on Dispatches? Sketch 185 and
Lamont. Yeah.
And like they both kill it. They're both great. But I don't know that you would have naturally thought that everything would work, but it does, because you have faith in how good the individual voices are and that it'll work together.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so, and I think people can be on. Like that's one thing I remember. Nick Marsh, he Focus Hip Hop. He's reviewed a couple of my albums, and he noted how specifically on Serapium that a lot of times the guest features were just rhyming about like it didn't really mold necessarily. Like it didn't mold that we're all talking about the same thing, but because the other person is so in their own world as well, that it still kind of works, despite not necessarily because I don't expect everyone to talk about what I'm talking about. I mean, sometimes people do, like certain artists. We definitely are more on that wavelength. Like me and Sleep, D-Land on like on 30 Tyrants, I'd say we're more that fits together pretty seamlessly as far as the content. But then with me and Lamont, that where our verses are pretty different. There's no real topic to the song. There's no, I don't give people topics really. Maybe it's funny because I was going through this prior to this, I was going through a little bit of my like older music, and I was listening to it, and I'm like, oh man, I used to have a lot of topics. I would do a ton of topics. Each thing had its own concept, each song. Like one song I did about like death, and I walked through from where basically beginning and end of dying. Another one I talked about someone just looking out the window, waiting for a story to come, and just kind of being detached from reality.
That's like a Randy Newman joint. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I did a lot more stuff like that, but now I think I'd like to maybe reincorporate that to some degree. But a lot of times I just do what I do, and then I would get someone else on it because I know that the people I'm getting, they know what to do. I don't need to, they'll get, like with Sketch, like when I sent him the Sungita song, he I didn't need to tell him to say, to talk about the last thing that he saw was the hum of the liquor store lights. You know what I mean? I didn't. You don't need to tell him that, because he's a one of one phenomenal, unbelievable writer. So he hears that in my verse, and with the rustling leaves, that I probably busted my ass in because I didn't throw any salt down, and and that could have been the last thing I saw, the fucking leaves. So but he gets that immediately. So those are the people I kind of prefer to work with, and they know what time
and but it's it's just a good challenge. It's a good sphere for your writing to adapt within, like the Shattering of Dragonpur. Your verse that kicks that off is this beautifully succinct explanation of war and what goes into war and the elements that kind of go into it and the outcome and how it affects people. And it's really like it's really succinct. It's like it's an A paper in this 16 bar. Like, it's really, so that's a really interesting thing to be like 16 bars, explain war. It's like Billy Woods explaining Russian history in Odessa.
Yeah. And then everyone takes it in their own direction, which is cool. And I think that's why it works. Because everyone just has their own direction on it, and somehow it all kind of comes together.
And of course, the grouping of Blood Money Perez and Alaska just works. It just
yeah. That was a good one.
Yeah, it's just great. So it's there's a lot of great things on there. But yes, I'm glad that you mentioned it's an angry album. It is an angry album.
Yeah.
And but it's interesting. There's got a lot of different tones.
A lot of flavors and shades of anger. There's a lot of it's a complex emotion, I guess.
Yep. Let's get to a different one here. Let me just this might lead to my first rant-ish thing. Dianetic materialism on Dispatches from the Kali Yuga. For many volumes, writing the same novel, ashing the same J's inside of the same hovel. So this was actually I highlighted this one because I was talking about we had this kind of we were talking yesterday about last week about the Kid Cudi Man on the Moon series. Me and K Diggy, my co-host, the State of the Game. He's been kind of rallying against Megan Thee Stallion's Good News album, and that it was kind of incomplete. And he's just like, with these albums, you kind of want to know what the person's trying to tell you, what they're trying to impart. And my response, and I was thinking of you during the response, was, if you give me the album that is the movie of your life, then that's the only album I need. But if you give me the chapter, then I need the next chapter.
I see. Right.
And that's really kind of what you've done, is you've been speaking in volumes of the same novel. Is that what you were thinking about that one? Or
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's because I like, that's a great point. I mean, you always pull out some great points. But that's definitely something that I do kind of unconsciously and consciously. That, like, for instance, one thing I'm actually doing is working on a novel, and I love reading fantasy. I mean, that's a huge part of my reading, and the biggest influence on me is probably Stephen Erickson's Malazan Book of the Fallen. And that's 10. I mean, the main series is 10 books. They're each like, immense tomes, each one of them. But so there's the element of each one has its own story, and he keeps expanding, and oh my God, does he keep expanding? I mean, you think the first one you read, you're like, holy crap, I can't even understand what's going on practically. because so much is going on and the world is so new. And then on the second one, he introduces an entirely different cast of characters, entirely. And then the third, and then up until like the last book, he's introducing new characters and expanding the world. So to me, so there's that element to it, and then there's the element of basically, because a lot of times like it's kind of a derogatory in a sense when people say, oh, he just makes the same album again and again and again. He makes the same album again. Like a lot of people say that, and they would say that. I don't know if they say it to me specifically, but they do. If someone said that about an artist, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's probably a shitty artist, or that's not a good artist if they keep making the same album again and again. But so I kind of was saying that in sort of a tongue-in-cheek sort of way to take that into account as well. But if you're working on the same novel, well, the Malazan Book of the Fallen, it's one novel. Each one's a novel, but the entire book is a one story in itself. So at the end of the day, I don't view it as a negative, and I don't, at the end of the day, I'm always going to write my own. I like maybe one time, I don't know. I thought it's funny because I talked about this with Scorsese, because he has a very different conception of this sort of thing, and he's a supporter, and he's not saying that I'm doing anything wrong necessarily, but with him, each project he tries to approach it in a way that he's bringing something completely new to the table, a style, a sound that you've never heard before,
right.
and show you his versatility.
Right.
With me, I'm not really trying to show you any versatility necessarily. I don't know how much versatility I have to be, I mean, I think I have some versatility, but like, I'm not, I think maybe I have more than I might give myself credit for. And I'm sure, I don't think I'm not a versatile artist to a degree, but, I'm doing what I'm doing. What I'm doing on Righteous is similar to what I'm doing on Dispatches. I approach my verses the same way. That's just what I do. When I'm writing, at this point, I'm just writing, and that's what comes out of it. But
one of the terms that I coined this year, because I think sometimes we like put too much pressure on people to completely reinvent themselves next album, right? Like, this is still this guy. Yeah, what was he gonna do? Like, he's still him, So one of the
that's what I liked about Cavo too, because like you mentioned earlier, right. Each album takes him through a different lens, but he's certainly not giving you, he's not changing up his sound by any stretch of the imagination. But as a fan of his, I don't necessarily really need him to. Right. I like what he does. It puts me in the headspace, and each one goes a little bit deeper, where I get a little bit more of him. I get more of his story, more of his thoughts on things, and so to me, that's what, if you enjoy what I do, I don't think you'll be turned off by me doing, similar approaches. I don't know if any of my listeners really want me to, come out with a country album. Maybe I will, but I don't think that.
So the term I'd coined was a sculptor, right? And it was I have a friend in London named Louis, who's sculpting a shark, a giant shark. And he's been talking about how awesome it is, right? And I was just like, shit, man, he just wakes up every day and he just chips at the shark, man. He just makes it a shark until it's crazy. Done, right? Like, and that's kind of that's what Mobb Deep did, right? After album after album after album. They sculpted who they were. They got a little bit better, but they didn't throw it away, right? The shark has 3 rows of teeth. They kept going, and that's, some artists are like that. They just kind of build from project to project. It's not David Bowie reinventions every time. And that's just, some people are sculptors. So.
Yeah, and maybe I don't want to throw away the opportunity to do something different in the future. I don't know. The funny thing is, I'm working on so many different things that I think people will see my versatility, but they're going to see it in different ways. When you not that I don't know how many people will be interested in reading my novel, but I think if it comes out, if I ever am able to finish it, because it's getting a little insane. But if I'm ever able to get it to print, that'll show a different side. if I'm working on right now on a TV series that we're working on getting hopefully picked up. I mean, we hope it's going to be picked up. It's not like it's on the table for being picked up, but we're working on it. And we're working on hopefully this year shooting a kind of like a short film that serves as an intro to the world of the show. So that's what will probably, God willing, come out, sometime in the near future. And I think when people see that, nothing like my music. Completely, it's a comedy sitcom. It's like So when you compare me to Larry David, that was the funniest thing, because I'm like, well, not only am I trying to be the Larry David of rap, I kind of want to be the Larry David of TV, and I want that Seinfeld money too. I need those royalty checks coming in.
Yep, yeah, the Borscht Belt Lenny Bruce line. You were definitely, comedy is a part of it in the background. What it was gonna say was, so in terms of end of year lists and not seeing your name on some end of year lists, I would tell you, because I had no idea what to do with you in terms of end of year lists. And I forgave myself for it, because what I settled on was like, this is kind of a world of movies like Guardians of the Galaxy and all these things, and your world is like the Americans. It's like, I don't know, Atlanta. It's like something that's like a very serious, interesting television show that has seasons, Fargo or whatever, right? And so it's just a different beast, and it doesn't fit alongside kind of the people who were like worked for 2 years on this album and dropped it, So, but it's so that was there.
Yeah, I'm not stressing too much on that. I mean, I know sometimes I post about it, and I think people think I'm more mad about it than I am. But I really don't care. And that's why I said I really care about more than anything just the people who are listening to it. To me, it means more that someone who I know has good taste. I mean, when you look at the few that have me on it, that's the Greek pedigree on Twitter. When he posts his year-end list, like that's a great list. I posted that on my Instagram, and that's a solid list. So if someone's not, if I'm not on the list that has Russ on it or whatever, then I can live with that. I'll be on. I'll be on the few people who tune in. As long as they enjoy it, if they support, if they whatever else, then and then it's working for me.
Yep. And so the give you a couple that kind of hang together here. First, and this one lived in my head for a while. From Skillful Means on Rinpoche, by no wisdom abide, wisdom defined.
Yeah.
That seems like a real Iceberg Theory thing to say. That is good stuff.
Yeah, just unknowing, the cloud of unknowing kind of.
Like the approach. Like the Siddhartha mentality of like, I can't necessarily follow Buddha. I'm rolling on my own.
Kind of that, a little bit of that, and then just a little bit of like, I think the minute that you think you know everything, and you don't really, like, a lot of people are going around thinking they know, they got it all, everyone's got it all figured out in a sense. So I think to kind of be realistic and be like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff I don't know, and just kind of take it in a sense. That's what I try to do to the degree I can, and how I approach things in general.
Yep. I'm going to save that one. So, but yeah, the one that goes along with this is from the last symbolist, Matthew 10:34. Create the problem and sell you the solution at their rate. What's the fair market value when the demand is the fame?
Oh, yeah.
These are very good. You are very good.
Oh, man. You're gassing me too much.
We're talking about like you know, me and Keith, I've talked to him a lot about like rappers you read, you know, like I used to really love going on like lyric websites and just reading Rakim because I just knew more when I read it. It was less dizzying, and you are very good to read, even though you're not on.
I might have to do that. People want me to put my lyrics up. It's pure laziness. I'll tell you that right now. It's just pure slothfulness that I don't have any real reason not to. It's just pure. I hope that doesn't. I don't know what people will think of that, whether that's disappointing or not. But it's just pure laziness.
Yeah.
But maybe I'll, I don't know. Maybe eventually I'll start. But because I started at first, I was just doing. I was writing all the rhymes in a notebook, and then now I write in a notebook. But then I realized when I go back to stuff, I can't read it. Like that was happening all the time. And when I'm recording, when I'm whatever, I'm like I just can't read my handwriting. I have like really quick handwriting that's just god awful. Yep. So I had to start putting it in my notes. So then I could always just have it there. So I'm not, because I was like I'll go back to a verse and I'm just like a good quarter of this is just completely illegible.
Yeah, man. That's I am dysgraphic, so I feel you on this. Let me. So the last symbolist, thoughts in solitude.
Oh, wait, that one.
So let's, but yeah, the fair market rate, the demand is the fame, create the problem, solution their rate. There's a lot of really good corruption talk in your writing, and it's rooted. It's always rooted somewhere. There's a lot of people being like poisonous world, da da da, but like you really root it in stuff, and it's good. So yeah, what was like last symbolist, thoughts of solitude? I'll never outlive my work because posterity foul. Wonder if the future really allowed. That's an interesting. Did I get that right?
Yeah, I think you did. I'm just trying to think, what the fuck, what was I even thinking what was my mindset of writing that, I'll never outlive my work.
So part of me thought, like, when you talk about I'll never outlive my work, your sense of space and time is different within the music. With what you talk about, perennial philosophy and like oneness and the temporal nature of human existence. Your sense of the nature of existence is different than everybody else's, or a lot of people I know.
Yeah, at least some people. I mean, it's maybe different from some, I guess. Yeah, I guess it's more, the funniest story is that kind of illustrates it is just the fact I forgot how old I was for a year. I thought I just turned 28, and then last year I was turning 28. So I was just like, shit, I just got like a free year, like, because I'm like, oh yeah, I'm turning 28 this year. And then my mom was like, no, you're not. You're turning 27. And I was like, did the math, and I was like, oh shit, okay, you might be right on that. But and I don't really remember years in the same way. Like a lot of people are like, oh, back in 1962, on the 3rd of October, I ate cereal. I mean, like they just are able to tell you, and I'm just like, I really don't know. And maybe that it could just be a malfunction in my, you know what I mean? Maybe it's like a malfunction or something. But I think it's just like I kind of go in terms of like feelings when I like think back to a certain time. Like I can't tell you. Like I remember when I was in school, I studied abroad in Rome. If I maybe really thought about it and figured out what year it was, I'm sure I could. But like what I can tell you though is exactly like I just bring up that feeling of how I felt at that particular time, just in my mind so vividly, and so I kind of mark things by that sort of feeling rather than a year or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. The one that I thought that got me started on this, like, what are the commandments of Iceberg Theory? What do you need to know as a listener? Old Names from Alexandria. Old Names is a hell of a song. I write Greek tragedy like Antigone, while the old world burns in the fires of industry.
Yeah.
Science and religion. reason was the scalpel which dissect divinity.
Bars.
Yeah.
What can I say?
Yeah, no,
that was Lord of the Rings. I think that's from Lord of the Rings, right? The fires of industry. I think that's where
yeah. Yep.
that I think they said that in that one. So I was kind of trying to throw that in, but yeah, I mean that's the idea.
Yeah, no, and it's like you have very spiritual music, and you're very connected to uh, notions of spirituality that are not just a singular, not just you're not a Christian rapper per se. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah, no, I mean not at all. Yeah, a lot of people think I am because they'll listen to one album, and then that gives them, like, if you listen to like Philo Kalia, like I was actually it wasn't really a monastery. It was more of like a retreat center place, like an ecumenical retreat center. But I recorded that entire album there, like a lot of it in this. They had a hermitage on the grounds, so when the guests weren't there and I wasn't working, I was able to stay in the hermitage. So I would just be there, in the small, maybe 300 square foot, let's say something like that, just in the middle of like Minnesota pine forest. I mean, so it was a beautiful place to record. But I made that whole album based on the monastic hours. So each song on the tail end of it had a thing, whether it's lauds, vigils, like all that kind of thing, like the 7 of them. And those are all the prayer times. So each song kind of embodied one particular prayer time. So people will listen to that and it's like, okay, he's a Christian artist, he's a Christian rapper. But then, then the next one will be Buddhist. Then the next one will be, perennial philosophy. The next one will be, based on, Hindu philosophy and stuff. So yeah, it's definitely more of a comparative religion approach. And I could, anything that has some truth in it, I could take from. And all my favorite writers on religion, even if they are Christian, like Thomas Merton is probably one of my biggest influences just in life. But one of the things he does is, he was always writing about other religions. I mean, he died in Asia when he went there on his world tour or whatever. When he finally got to go, and so he was considered. People said he knew, like, Buddhist masters were like, okay, yeah, like we don't want other people talking about Buddhism, but like he can, and like, so he kind of had an innate way of understanding truth. So whether there's truth in all, in all of it, there might be fabrications in each one too. Everything has its own, veils and things like that. But I try to take what's true or true to me at least. I'm not going to say as far as unknowing goes, I definitely don't have any monopoly on truth more than anyone else. But whatever rings true to me, I could, it could resonate from any number of religions.
Did Merton do the self-fulfilling prophecy?
What do you mean self-fulfilling?
Is he a sociologist, or is this? I may be thinking of a different Merton.
Yeah, no, Thomas Merton. He was a monk. He was a Trappist monk, and he was he ended up being a hermit for a pretty short amount of time. But he wanted to be a hermit throughout his, because I read his diaries and all that, and just for years and years he wanted to be a hermit, and he had a terrible relationship with his abbot, and his abbot just didn't, because Merton was a writer. He was a writer before anything else, and then he had his conversion, and then when he came to the monastery, he wrote 7-Story Mountain, which was a tremendous spiritual conversion story book kind of thing. Kind of like Augustine Confessions, like something in that sort of lineage, and that blew up that monastery. So, and he had, because of that fame, he had a lot of people reaching out and wanting him to do things, go places, give talks, and because of the strict rule and obedience to the abbot, he basically was forced to give up a lot of his own ambitions. And I mean that is I mean, I'm not going to judge what's right or wrong about it. I mean, to a degree, I think that is the point of being a monk. You are giving up your own individual will and passions, but then that if you which is not to say that's good or bad, but if you have the right person, then okay, the right abbot. But if you have an abbot that may not have your best interest at heart, or might have your best interest at heart in a sort of paternalistic, way of not letting you kind of blossom, I guess,
Right.
then it's going to lead to a lot of issues. And, that's definitely something he experienced a ton in his life, which always, his writing really always resonated with me.
Yep, I sympathize, having been in the army and given my service to people who suck. Let me see here. So yes, my iceberg theory on iceberg theory. This is good. Okay, so Ben Koheleth, son of Ecclesiastes, precepts of Chiron, right?
Okay.
Precepts of Chiron's the album. For a time that never was, I feel nostalgic. I like it. I'd like to kick my theory here. I have another quote that supports it. Okay. So, did you ever see Batman the Animated Series?
Not that I'm aware of. Maybe clips, but I don't think so.
So, when I'm a comic nerd guy, entertainment a little bit. Scott Snyder, who started writing Batman a while ago, he said when he was first given the job, he studied all these different iterations of Batman, and he determined that the 90s Batman animated series was the last inventive new chapter for Batman. And because the design of Gotham that they gave was as if the World's Fair in whatever, the 30s, had actually been the science that continued on. So
that's cool.
Future versions of that architecture, right? The cars were different. The buildings architecture was different. They changed the way Gotham looked to look like a cooler reality, right? It was still reality.
This is in the animated series.
Yep.
Oh shit, that sounds cool.
It's killer. So everything is different, but it's the same. It's really interesting because it's like a 20-degree difference from the world and I think that's kind of what you do in your writing. And so I guess my quote here that I thought was from Unos Ta'ulan from Dispatches from the Kali Yuga. Student want to test his blade, the master oblige. Samsara kept turning innumerable afterlives. 100,000 arrows hit the cavalry line. And it took me a while, like rolling over with this, to realize like a lot of this is just a hell of a flex, right? Student want to test his blade, the master oblige, right? It's like cool, but 100,000 arrows in the cavalry line, that is vivid, right?
Yeah.
And that's not an image that is in Redman's writing, right? Like Redman's not going to say that. He doesn't live in that world. And you have created a world with the 100,000 arrows, but also with, corrupt governments and vaccines that we know, right?
Right.
You've created a world that has all of it in it. You're not writing from Mesopotamia, right? You're not the Dr. Octagon of Mesopotamia.
Right.
But you are writing from a little askew of what a perspective would be. Does that
that's cool.
make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I like that. That's a good idea of it. I could definitely gel with that idea. Absolutely.
And I think it makes it durable. So when you are writing with other people, you're still bringing your world to it, and it's cool.
Yeah, it's always in. I mean, it's. I'm talking about these events, and there could be a lot of different. I'm pulling from a lot of stuff, but yeah, I always try. It's always still relevant to me at this time. It's not. I've thought about making like a completely like medieval album or something like that, but but then I'll be doing that, and then I'm sure there's something maybe futuristic I'll want to throw in there. So to me, it's like I'd rather just have all of it at once. And yeah, you're definitely gonna get the the Bronze Age shit. You're gonna get all you're gonna get that, but then you might get some computer chip, some sci-fi stuff in there too. You might get some whatever else.
And you're gonna get some like straight hip hop shit, right? You're gonna get some
right.
straight up hip hop shit. It's so this mixture is your mixture, and it lives in that kind of Batman the Animated Series uniqueness. What else?
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool.
So, chopping onions with the Kartika on Rinpoche. Play your hand in the present. The future's a bluff.
Yeah.
I like it.
It feels that way sometimes, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's an educated pessimism, right? It is definitely like and maybe it's not pessimism, right? Maybe it's just
I don't know what. Yeah, it's I don't know. It's a tough mindset to go around with, but that's I could pay to see a therapist, or I could put out music and try to get paid for the music. So that's definitely what I live with all the time. Which anyone living now, I'm sure, is living with the same thing. I mean, it's like the idea of there being a future, and any future that's good. I mean, yeah, maybe there'll be a future, but God, it can't say I love the way things are going.
Yeah, I mean, I've always had a similar like thought process to that, and it's led me to a real grateful place in my life where I'm very thankful for things, for relationships, for successes, for whatever, because I'm very aware of how fleeting this all is.
Right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It doesn't have to be. Yeah, it's definitely not only a negative thing. And I think when some of my best moments, the most beautiful moments I've had in my life are definitely tinged with that. You're so completely in the present moment and appreciative of what's being presented to you. But there is a keen awareness that it's not forever. But that's what kind of gives it the beauty, that this one particular moment, like say like two people are experiencing something beautiful together or something like that, and it's just for this moment. It's not going to be the same tomorrow. It might not be the same 10 years from now. It might not be who knows what will be in 10 years from now. But so I think, and even if you're not consciously thinking that, I think when you have those moments where you're more connected kind of to the truth of things, or however you want to conceptualize that kind of God, consciousness in your head, however you want to word it. I think that's kind of the basis of it, that you realize that this moment is it's completely unique, and it's not, even though you might be doing the same thing 100 days in a row. Like I've been living here out in the woods,
right?
Doing the same thing. I'm in the same ashing the same J's inside of the same hovel. My day to day, I'm for work I'm answering phone calls. I'm answering the same phone calls. I'm it's kind of writing verses. I'm whatever. There's not I'm not doing 100 million different things every day, but each day there's when I'm at least smart enough to be aware of it, there's some beauty, whether it's the nature. And I think that's why living in nature is so beautiful, and why I appreciate it. I'm not going to say it's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do, but that's why I prefer to live here, because just seeing little things like a cat walks across my porch, like a deer is walking around eating some, it's just like that might happen every day, but that particular deer in that particular spot with the sun coming through the trees and that particular pattern, that's all unique. So if you can appreciate that for what it is, I don't think you ever could get tired of, or not that you'll ever get tired, but you'll always be able to renew, your vigor for life. Because I think one of my followers, and I think I follow him too on Twitter, they sent a Bukowski interview, and he kind of said, as getting old, and I've never read much of him, so I don't really know much about him, but the whole idea was like, I've been doing the same shit, I'm kind of tired of life, and I feel like I'm ready to die because because I've done it all and I'm, just kind of doing the same thing again. And to me, I don't, that doesn't make me want to read him. Not to say he's not good or something like that, but to me, where's the beauty in that? I certainly feel that same way sometimes, but to me, that's like that's not a great, impulse to have. That's not something I want to, nurture necessarily. It's not, I don't think that's a good way of going about life, that, I've done it all. So, because I think then you can't, I think overall it was a good idea. It was okay. Cause he's like, all right, I'm doing this in the sense of, if I, cause I'm ready for death, I'm okay. But, I get it. I still think it's good to be ready for death at all times. As monks, they keep a skull on their desk, because to remind them that death is always there. But to me, that knowing of death is, should be to make things more beautiful right now. Not that, I'm just ready to, walk into it because I'm tired of, my life. That's just, you're depressed. That's what that is.
No, it at some point it becomes a game of like giving as much as you can back to your environment before you go. And like, there's a part of mourning which is important, where you take how sad you feel for losing them and you turn it a little bit and you go, oh, I had years with that person. Like, how cool is it that I had this person for that time?
Right.
Like, that's amazing, and think about all they gave me,
Right.
And I've definitely paused in relationships, like when I was like out of touch or unhappy with a close person of mine, and written that out and said, like, I really appreciate what we've had if it never happens again.
Right.
So it just, you never know. But what the Damon from Alexandria had to fight hard for virtue when the vice was inclined. Turn the attention outward, lose sight of the mind. They say salvation given freely, but the price was implied.
Yeah.
There's a lot of feeling. Oh, go ahead.
No, it's a tough one to do. That's a lot of times I'm just trying to remind myself to try to do those things, because, God, I'm terrible at it.
Yep.
It's something I realize, but practicing it is a different thing entirely. But yeah, that's pretty concise. Salvation given freely, but the price is implied. It's free to do, but it takes the entirety of your being, I feel like, and the entirety of one's being is something that is hard to give up, especially when in this world or in society the way it is now, our attention is so scattered in a million different ways. My God, I just whether you're on on Twitter, I'm getting emails, I'm doing work, so many times I'm working on 10 different stories, like whatever the case may be,
right.
And you lose sight of that kind of inward realization. But in order to do it, you need to be 100% there. When you're meditating, when you're whatever, you need the entirety of yourself. You're giving the entirety of yourself to just that present moment. And it's impossible for some people. Just sitting alone in a room and not having stimulus is virtually impossible for a lot of the people today. And myself included sometimes. I'm not, again, I do not want to come across as anyone. Oh, I figured this out and now I'm from the mountaintop. And sometimes I feel like sometimes I like to play with that, like in the braggadocio sort of way. But that's far from the reality that I'm trying to. I think there's enough in there that anyone who really listens is getting that I'm struggling with it as much as anybody else. I hope so, at least.
There's a real the theme in your music of like faith as hard work. Faith, that there's like that. It's kind of what I tell people about marriage, that like marriage is something you work every day on. You clock in, you clock out every day.
Right.
Sometimes you eat shit and you had a bad day. and then other times you did better. But it's every day. And if so that's kind of faith, right? Faith is an everyday thing. It's not something you cross the finish line and no one can ever take it away from you, right?
Yep, exactly.
So it's an important thing, and it's I think people are used to like the Christian rap designation, or people that are like in one zone, you know. And I understand completely, like wanting to know as much as you can about spirituality, and wanting to integrate that into yourself. You know, when I'm Jewish, and I really never like, I would talk to my mom about it all the time, and I'd be like, I'm Jewish because you just can't, I'm not going to join a different religion to just get away from being Jewish. But
right.
But I don't believe in this stuff, and it doesn't hook me. So I just started.
It's tough, man. With and there's some that's I mean, a lot of that, I think there's just presentation and how, maybe presentation is not the word, but because I'm from the same background, and a lot of times growing up, I mean, I didn't do the whole Hebrew school or any of that, but there was nothing was ever presented to me about the religion that made me realize that there was anything there worth really knowing and worth doing, and like a spiritual practice. But when you go to really super religious Jewish people, like either Orthodox, those are the people who are practicing Kabbalah, so but they're doing it within their own community, so it's not accessible. So to me, when I read about Buddhism, I think I was in like middle school, and that's when I started reading, that's when I read Chogyam Trungpa, and people like that. And that's what I come to the math class, I'm just like, guys, none of this matters. We're all going to die. Everything's emptiness. I'm like telling everyone. But once I started to kind of have that realization, then come back to some Judaism, and kind of see it from that perspective, that all the things that are great about Buddhism, or at least a lot, are in Judaism. But it might not be at the surface. With Buddhism, what Buddhism does so great is that meditation is practice. Like if you get nothing else from Buddhism, you're probably going to be meditating. Like that's at that entry level, you're meditating. But like entry level Judaism, it's just like, okay, we made some challah, we're gonna say a prayer and have some wine, and you know what I mean, like, which is great. Like I'm not, whatever, like keep the traditions, like that's cool. But as a spirituality, you're not getting really much on a surface level, unless it's taught to you, directly that about the spirituality.
Right, or you're like pursuing it. You're like really into it or pursuing. But like, and the interesting thing, you bring up Buddhism, because yes, I turned to Buddhism ultimately, and it was I read the Dhammapada, and there was something in there. It was a saying of Buddha, where it was like, it was basically amounted to, like, you don't need to know the specifics of God. You just have to act as a good person, and that's not your job. And it was like, shit, okay. And that's kind of been, that really helped in terms of, you can pursue spirituality without this, without like believing the story or waving the flag for whatever divine power. There's a whole set of ethics you can look at, the Tao Te Ching. You can look all over the place and really discover stuff. And there's a real history of Jewish people turning to Buddhism. It's like a real, like, that. And
the Jew booze,
Yep.
That's what me and Shalom, the Jew in the Lotus song. That's kind of that was where that came from, because that was like a book, if I'm correct, where a bunch of Jewish rabbis went to visit the Dalai Lama, so that kind of came from that. I remember reading that in college and really liking that, and so we tried to make the song about that. But yeah, there definitely is a lot of that, because it's just so different the way the two are presented. It's like, but that's a crazy thing, because once you start reading more about, Judaism, you realize that some of those, even Christianity, some of those same conceptions are there. It's just, you might need to dig a little bit deeper, and that's what ultimately turned me off from Christian monasticism for pursuing it myself. Because when I went to the monastery, I never grew up Christian, but then I read Thomas Merton, I read, a lot of the mystics, and then I was like, oh shit, being a monk, this is, what it's about. I like the lifestyle. I like all these things resonate with me. But then when I got to the monastery, oh yeah, I brought this up in the interview, but I'll say it again just briefly. But when I go there and I'm at the monastery, and I'm kind of experiencing it all, and I'm like, okay, and I walk into the sanctuary or whatever, and then all the monks are like bowing to the Christ statue, and that's where I got the line, Mount Savior, Christ statue never bowed. It's it's the way of walking alone. It's the Tao. It's all trials, something like that. And that's essentially that, because being there, it made me realize it's like, okay, I'm not a Catholic, I'm not really a Christian, because the monks are telling me, they're like, oh, this is what you have to learn, this is the apologetics that you need to get behind, the Pope is infallible, blah blah blah. This is like my first day at the place, and I'm just like, I don't know, man. I've been reading like St. John of the Cross, like say, you know what I mean? I've been reading like stuff that's telling, like the cloud of unknowing, like that basically could be out of a Buddhist, universe in a sense, with the message that it's sending, and it's like, and then you're telling me this, it's like, and it maybe those monks' lives are deeper underneath the surface. I'm certainly not gonna, I'm sure they each have their own individual personality and their own belief about, the Pope being infallible and this, that, or the other thing. Mm-hmm. But in that experience, I was just like, yeah, no, this isn't for me. I'm gonna have to. To me, it's a harder. I don't want to say harder, but it would have been more convenient. It would have been nice to go to a place, kind of give up the self will, and just be like, okay, this is it, and then just work on spirituality. But largely when you're outside of it, then you have to make your own living. You have to do all these other things, which as a monk, yeah, you make your own living, but it's done within the confines of the monastery. You still have that prayer schedule worked in. So it's like there's only so far you could really fall, in a sense, if you're following all the things. Like when I'm at the retreat center, there was a meditation in the morning and afternoon at all the dinners. The guests would say, we'd say a prayer or, some kind of thing like that, in the beginning of the meal. So, when you have that, it's always constant reminders to bring your attention, away from, all the exterior things, and just appreciate what's in front of you. But, when you're out in the world making a living, doing all this other shit, it's like, it's easy to get caught up in, just everything else and completely forget about that. So, that's what I've been doing now. I've just been living, I guess, and trying to,
But I think it's helped. I think you are still pursuing spirituality in these many forms, and creating your own like Jeet Kune Do of it, and that's Bruce Lee's martial art form, for whoever doesn't know. But which was all about mixing the forms and kind of knowing instinctively which form to slip into. And that's kind of what you're doing with your studies, and you're sharing them with an audience that can learn from them as well. So that's awesome.
Yeah, if it means something to people and they can get something from it, and hopefully I know it's a reminder to myself, and if it could be something like that to other people, then that's a cool thing.
That's cool. So, question about the future: Are you doing an album with Scorsese?
Oh yeah. I should have hit him up to see how much he wanted me to talk about it. But yeah, we're working on a full length, actually. Yeah.
I am very interested in how that turns out, because he's definitely told me, and I think he told me on the last YouTube thing. So it's not.
Okay, good. It's not.
I don't think I'm speaking.
Yeah, I don't know how much he wants me to talk about. Yeah, just about the details and everything. But yeah, we're working on that, and yeah, it sounded good so far.
that's an interesting mixture of voices, and
Yeah, he's dope, man. He's dope.
it's
He's
so
really
cool
dope.
because he like there's so much emotion in the delivery that he
Mm.
puts in. I bought a pair of the joggers or whatever
Mm.
recently, and I included a message and just said the first the first verse of Boring Gun Raps makes me want to fight the whole world. Like I'm a like I'm not I don't I'm a very relaxed person, but that thing there's so much adrenaline in it.
Mm.
He works himself into a space where he's a monster. So
Yeah.
I think that'll be a lot of
And
fun.
I gotta, yeah, no, we got totally different styles. And then just as far as one thing, I just feel like, I want to make sure I point out just such a fucking great guy,
Yep.
just absolutely phenomenal. I think I was watching, like, because we had spoken before, and then I saw one of his interviews, and I was just like, while I was listening to the interview, I was just like, all right, we had worked before on like a song, and we talked on, but it's like I got just a sense of him through watching the interview, and I'm like, okay, this is someone I really want to be, working with on something, longer. So, and that's, I mean, we've had just great talks about music, about life, about, just great friends. So
Yep.
that's a cool, that's a cool friendship to have, and
Yeah.
the music is coming out nice. So that one's really cool.
That the question will be because Scorsese is also a very good beat picker, has a whole like cabal of different interesting producers, and
Mm-hmm.
you have your roots and your connections with producers, and I'll like whenever there's collaborations like that, I always say somebody gets home field advantage, right? Like somebody's on a beat that they're comfortable on. And I'll be
He's comfortable on everything, though. That's the thing. That's what's cool. That's what he's so versatile.
yeah,
He
yeah,
I think this album is going to show a lot of his versatility of because it's kind of because he even says it on one of the songs. He's like, I want to bring Iceberg into my world, but like I feel like with a lot of the project, I'm kind of bringing him into my world too. So it's a little bit of a little bit of both, I'd say. We're both kind of bringing the other into our world.
I'm excited to hear him on a Fanon beat. That'll be interesting.
You know what? I don't think we got one yet. I have to hit up. I have to get one of those.
That'll be good stuff.
We got a big assortment of people on that. On this one, I got a beat or two on it. I think I'm not going to go through the whole credits. I don't want to give away too much, but yeah, that's definitely going to be a good project. I think that's coming. I want to say first quarter next year, maybe late first quarter. And then yeah, definitely a couple other projects in the pipeline too, as well.
That's awesome. Hey man, congratulations on what you've been able to do this year and the growth that you've been able to do. It seems like you've done professional and personal growth throughout the year. That like the writing of if these albums, I really tell people go to the band camp and go on the journey. Your notion of spirituality is different for each project, and it really feels like you're learning as you go, and it's just good to have it. It's good to be there for it.
Oh no, I appreciate that, man. And just before I don't know if we're kind of going towards an end. I guess it kind of sounds like that's the case, but I also wanted to say one thing where I'm not going to give too much of a scoop, but we've been hinting about it on Twitter a little bit, but we keep talking about the watchers, and that's going to be that. I don't know if you've seen any of those tweets. Just annoyingly everything watchers.
I have not.
That's going to be dude, that's going to supergroup. That's coming. Supergroup. We got me. We got Sleep. We got Prince P.
Very good.
We got Fleetwood DeVille. We got D. Lanham. And we got Blood Money Perez.
Whoo! That is fantastic.
Yeah, the watcher.
I mean, that is going to be an exciting mixture of voices.
I think that was 6 people I said, right? I want to make sure I'm not leaving anyone out. I said 6, right?
I think so, yep.
I think I did. So, okay, that's good.
Yeah, so
Like,
that's
it's 5% me. I'm the 6. There you go.
right. So that's fantastic. It's cool because it makes so much sense, and there's so many choices. Sleep is an incredible producer.
Hmm.
You produced Link Loan's album. It was fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah.
Great.
Shout out to Link, man. Link did a great job with that.
Yeah,
Link really put that
that's
together really nicely. We got another one coming too, actually. So shout out to him on that. But yeah, that's a unique thing though, because every person in the group produces. There's not one person in the group who's not a producer.
this is a whole generation of people who just did it themselves and kind of
Hmm.
made their names themselves, and so they all know how to do their stuff soup to nuts. It's that's why it's so great. That's why we have so many good choices.
Hmm.
But yeah, so RIP the labels probably. But
Yeah. Yeah,
it,
I mean, all power to the artist. Honestly, the more people can connect with, the listener individually, is, I mean, Bandcamp's dope. I mean, Bandcamp's very cool, but to me, I mean, the end goal is definitely straight to consumer. I mean, the more you could do that, the better. I mean, that's if you could completely control, how people are getting your music, and you don't have to worry about anything else. I mean, that's that's a beautiful thing, and that's kind of why I've strayed from doing too much on streaming and anything like that. It's just I try to keep it as much. If you want to listen to the music, you'll go listen to it. If that's going to stop you from listening to it, then I don't really need like if you can't. That's what I tell people. They're like, oh, you got to go on Spotify, and I'm just like, dude, type in a fucking. It's one thing. Ice Theory Rap at Bandcamp.com, and you could listen to any album for free or buy it. Like, if doing that is too much to engage with like someone's music, then maybe other people want you as a listener. And look, I'm sorry, I guess, but then if that's too much, then the music's going to be too much for you.
right. I mean, I had a weird thought like cramming in this music and thinking, God, it must be so much nicer to be Iceberg Theory than to be like Megan the Stallion or Lil Uzi Vert, because like they're like getting photo shoots and doing Sprite ads and like in beefs with weird people for crazy reasons on
Yeah,
Twitter that's trending.
yeah,
And you're like locked in a hovel, like reading, researching, doing the work, reading, researching, like recording the work. Like it's what
it'd be nice to make that kind of money. It'd be nice to have that sort of money from it. But yeah, definitely as far as my day to day, I prefer it more. And just even going places and do it like I'd like to shoot more videos. I'd like to do more stuff like that. But at the same time, like the act of going out and shooting a video is really daunting to me. Like it's just daunting. I don't know how else to say it. I don't have any desire to be doing that. And
and
I'm not going to say it's a better decision. It's definitely probably cost me some exposure in the long run, but it I it doesn't matter. It's like at the end of the day, I'd rather do what I want to do, and if people, hopefully people catch on, and rather than do a bunch of things that I don't want to do in order to, expand it. But
right.
that's my mindset right now.
But the clarity is, I mean, like David Lynch never sat back and said, "I wish I could be James Cameron." Right? He knew what he was doing was so specific that it was
Right.
really going to put him in a very specific status, right? And so you are in that kind of cult classic lane where you're never going to, no one's ever going to be like, are you sure you want to sell out? Because there's just no manageable way for you to sell out.
Oh no, people have tried. I mean, no, not. It's funny because I talked about this with Scorsese too, because I was telling him the story of the same friend I made Anchor Want with. He sent me this this song, and it was like just about like going to the club and like dancing, and he was like, "Oh, I want your verse to be about the disco ball and shining in the club, and you're doing all this." And I'm just like, you need to meet a couple more rappers, man. Like you need more friends that rap, because I am not the man for this song. And Scorsese's like, no, man, you gotta take that song and you know, do it, put your own style on it, put your own spin on it, put your own whatever. And I'm just like, and I tried to do it, but he didn't want that. So at the end of the day, there's not going to be any, there's not going to be any of that, because I just don't, I don't have any desire to do that. And there might be some other stuff, like that you might get some stuff you don't expect, but it's never going to be anything that I don't really feel like making, because if I don't feel like making it, I'm not going to make it, is the bottom line.
And there's a whole lane of people who've successfully navigated not changing or doing that, right? Like Elucid doesn't run around and do club songs. Like, he doesn't have to, right? The same with Woods.
Billy Woods, he's got the one dancing one though. What album is that on? Is that at the end of Today I Wrote Nothing, when the whole song is about not dancing? So that one's more my style. So awesome. Don't dance.
Yes, you can do it, man. And I appreciate you coming on.
Judging by my coordination earlier, you probably dancing's probably off the table.
Yeah, I mean, it's and I live in Maine, so nobody's good at dancing, but nobody knows they're not good at they're bad at dancing.
Oh man,
there's no one to compare it to. It's a very white.
Oh, that's got to be that though, man. Maine. Oh man, Maine. I want to. I'm looking. I need to build up once I get that Seinfeld money. We might be having a backyard barbecue or something. If I get some place up in Maine. Maine looks like it's the spot for real.
I shit you not. This is the funniest of the musical Maine stories. So when I was in Korea, that was 2001, right? I was stationed in Korea, and we didn't get really a bunch of new music in Korea. Like the clubs were still playing kind of older American music, so they would play the Ice Cube "Put Your Ass Into It" song. Remember this song?
I don't think
From
so.
War and Peace. It was like in the 90s.
Okay.
So the "Baby Put Your Ass Into It," and it was just like really stupid and really bad Ice Cube era. And so I came home from Korea to Maine, and the clubs played this song all the time, every Saturday night for like 8 years. We're like 8 years later, we're playing this weird Ice Cube song from '96,
right.
Taking Your Butt, and we can't get away from it because like the crowd like it now, and they're just playing it all the time.
Right. So I guess it's such an insular kind of community, right? That you kind of, once it catches on, it catches on, and that's that's the song you're getting. So yeah. He's not in Maine. Speaking of just New England and all that, are you familiar with Hump Jones at all?
Tom Jones?
No, Humpasaur Jones.
No.
You should check. That's another good friend of mine. You should check it out, because he's a Vermont guy.
Yep.
He's got a couple of aliases too. But I'll send you some of my favorite stuff of his. But I thought he's right around the corner from you, so you got to check him out.
There's some people doing stuff around here, but there's just no.
Oh, C Money Burns.
I think he's C Money Burns. Yep.
He's dope. Yeah. I've spoken to him about Maine. He always posts the weed that they got in Maine. I'm just like, damn, I gotta get to Maine and just get the legal weed up there.
There's just no like infrastructure for the music. There's no like. There's like 4
I don't want infrastructure. I want to get away from the infrastructure. I want to go to a place no one's gonna bother me. That's what I want. I want to go. I want to go to a place where I'm just looking for every direction, and there's not a single person. That is what I want.
Well, and that's I have the best of both worlds. I live in the middle of nowhere, next to a farm with chickens, just like a really laid back community. But it's 20 minutes from the big city.
Okay.
I can hit the big city in 20 minutes, so it's a good deal. But yeah, we're gonna.
That's good job, both.
Yeah, man. So thank you for your run. We will stay in contact as more projects develop. I really enjoy this stuff, and
hey man, thank you so much. Just one for listening, two for even taking the time to cover it, and just the level of depth you go in. I mean, it's more than appreciated. And I think that's going to catch on, a lot, because not a lot of people are going into the same thing where, not only do you cover people that not everyone knows about, but you cover about them in a way that, it's not to say, oh, this person does this, but you really think about kind of how what they're trying to do and contextualize it. And, it's very appreciated. So yeah, thank you for taking the time to talk.
Thank you. No, Gang said King Vision Ultra was like, he said, thank you for your fervor. And I said, the fervor is all I got. And he was like, well, you got that on lock, so it was a good time. So I appreciate it. And I will maintain the energy. But yeah, go to Iceberg Theory, Bandcamp. You will find what you need. Really, you can start anywhere, and you'll be interested. So don't be intimidated. Don't do the like, oh, there's too much. Pick anything and just pay attention. You're good. So let's do that here.